Hey guys, we welcome to this newsletter about tiny house. So this tiny house trend is since many years a big trend. Many people think it comes from USA, which is in fact true, but we will look a little bit about tiny houses. So the questions are tiny houses sustainable in general? Then as we are straw builders and clay builders, is it possible to make a tiny house with straw? Does it make sense? And what about a trailer, a mobile tiny home? So we will show you a little bit of the ideas of this downsizing stuff. And I will share the screen with you and we look what is um, available on the net. So first I found this from Fast Company on Fast Company website, which is a website a lot about also tiny houses. And there was a doctorate in from the lady is called uh, Maria Sexton, PhD candidate in environmental planning and design, the Virginia Tech University, and she made this doctorate about tiny houses. So she looked with the use of ecological footprint, spatial ecological footprint calculation in this study about how much does the footprint or does the footprint, the ecological footprint reduce with the tiny houses. Now, she checked about 80 tiny houses, downsizers located across the United States in this case, so England and UK. And the average ecological footprint was reduced by about 45% on average. Surprisingly, I found that downsizing can influence many parts of one's lifestyle and reduce impacts on the environment in unexpected ways. So it's naturally living a more environmentally friendly lifestyle, and achieving financial freedom. Um, and this calculation of the spatial footprint includes housing, transportation, food, goods, and service. So it's much more than just building with less materials or with more ecological materials. So this is the calculation with the spatial footprint. You see it here. You see the average consumption that we have. And here is a graphic which is not opening. It's on the original page. You can look at it. But the last two sentences, the last two topics here are interesting on the website. It's important to identify these behaviors in order to understand potential negative implications of tiny home living and enable designers to address them. It's also important to note that some behaviors I recorded could have been influenced by factors and the downsizing to the tiny home. For instance, some people might have reduced their car travel because they had recently retired, and all those things were included. Nonetheless, all participants in this study reduced their footprints by downsizing to tiny homes, even if they did not downsize for environmental reasons. This indicates that downsizing leads people to adopt behaviors that are better for the environment. These findings provide important insights for the sustainable housing industry and implications for future research in tiny homes. So a lot more about this and about the reasons. This is the original source. When people downsize to tiny houses, they adopt more environmentally friendly lifestyles. You will find all these links in below. And here is also this graphic which you can here look at. So we think that this is kind of fashion, and many of the tiny houses look like just you shrink a house with a gable roof. And I looked a little bit for alternatives because I think there are better ideas. So I looked what is maybe awarded, where some awards for good architecture were alternative concepts. So in fact, naturally, you can look if you're in natural building on, for example, this database here about African vernacular architecture, and then you know where tiny houses come from, or many natural tiny houses come from. These are all what we today would call tiny houses. So it was most the reason for these tiny houses were whether you live in a community and you have common spaces, or you have not the money to have a big house, or it's usually not the environmental impact they were interested in. If you look at the architectural websites, for example, in Arch Daily, you see a lot of tips and designing, building a tiny house. So they're mostly houses which are multifunctional, or which you can convert into, or you can convert the functions of this house to many different uses. But it's more or less a big house shrinked to a small one, and then they are cubic or transportable mobile. So you have this 2.55 meter width of the house, up to 12-meter length, which you can transport. And then you have really multifunctional rooms which you can convert. So your sleeping room, you can convert to a bench, and the table you can convert to the office, and those things. So this is about what you can find. A lot of those things you can find on websites like Arch Daily. Another one I found, which is quite nice here. So if you look for cabin and not for tiny house, you find a lot of small houses with quite interesting architecture. Yeah, so you can also look, if you are more into architecture, you can look at these sites. Another architectural website is Design, and I found here, and parallel, I found it on Netflix, series about cabins in the wild. It's called Cabins in the Wild. It's actually now playing on Netflix, 4 series, which are really fascinating, made 2017. And this was a sort of award procedure where many people around the world built a tiny house in Wales, in this case. So you have here an overview about the winners. This one was the top winner, The Dragon's Eye by Calvin Lloyd Jones from CAT. He works as a carpenter at CAT, and it has a turning bed, so you can have a little bit of privacy in this house. And this is sort of a tower, yeah, like that. So it's this was oriented by coal mine. So, and this house is opening to the sky, so that you can also see the stars and the Milky Way in the night. So for a star, and this one was we will talk about this later, because we used it also from the interior floor plan. So here you have on Dailymotion, you if you don't have Netflix, but I would suggest Netflix is also for 1 month for free, that you watch it on Netflix. But however, here you can watch 45 minutes of these cabins in the wild. You can watch here, and you see here the winners again. It's quite interesting. Also, naturally, this was made in 2017, and then Corona came, and then it was not so clear about what happened. But some of these cabins are available as pop-up hotels in Wales, and some others are not available. You will see in Epic Retreats, you can and look at it, what happened out of that. Another one is In Habitat, a wonderful website or wonderful platform for ecological building, and also design, lifestyle, environment. So if you don't know this page, it's really worth a watch. And this one is a quite nice example of a house, a tiny house in several stories. So where you can also use the terrace, and yeah, where you see that you can really do multifunctional rooms also in many stories and like that. And it looks like, yeah, it's a quite spacey retreat, let's say like that. This is also on In Habitat, so you also find here these 8 winners of this Welsh contest. You can also watch it here. You have more plans about these projects and how they look like and how they are built, like this one, for example. So you see some construction pictures of these tiny houses. Another one is Bee Breeders, is one of the biggest website for competitions, architectural competitions. And there was last year, there was a competition, or it was already 2 years ago, as I see here. And it was awarded last year. So this is the winner of last year's contest for tiny houses or for cabins, meditation, silent meditation forest cabins. It was like that, which is really interesting to look a little bit on these winners and the solutions. Yeah, also as an idea or so I have my problem. So another one which I really liked, it's in China, and I found it on Daily again. So this is a sort of community with tiny houses, and so it's quite, let's say, a quite conventional form, a little bit different in several layers, and you have this kind of assembly with different views in different directions so that they don't disturb the neighbor or yeah, like that. But it's, yeah, it's a community project, like a treehouse project combined. And you also know that tree houses also are tiny houses usually. So you have here also some pictures, and this is the whole area here. So it's sort of a, yeah, community where people live, a village of a lot of tiny houses which are assembled like a village structure. One really nice project I like is this Mayara residence, and it's in Iran, and it's made of Earthbags. This wonderful. It's a, yeah, it's also sort of a village, so it's possible to make this kind of roundhouses. It's a Hormuz, and you see some pictures of the inside and outside, and also you can look at a little bit how it's done, but it's mainly Earthbag construction. So you fill usually a plastic bag, plastic fiber bag with earth, stabilize it with cement or lime, and then you can build up yeah, 1 or 2 story, especially stabilizing structures like walls, domes. These are perfect for earthquakes, yeah, especially. It's this technique goes back to Nada Khalili, and this is why in Arabia it is very common. So then I looked for houses made with straw bales. Many of you may know that. Also, we use it very often as an example for a tiny house. Here it is Atta architect's residence, small cabin. Um, and it's 4.5 meter by 4.5 meter by 4.5 meter, like that. And it has in the upper story, it has this bedroom, and yeah, you can look at the plans also, lower floor plan and the upper floor plan, and how you can go up and cut through the building, how it's designed. Then another one which is made by Bales, Pai. It's a mini maison passif, so passive house in France. And so this looks like with a wooden cladding facade, yeah, quite natural, and inside like that. So it was in this case it was not plastered. It's just a pure wooden surface with seems like OSB or something on the inside. So maybe this is yeah. There are also, as you may know, straw boards which are glued and structural boards. So one of the iconic pictures, and I really like it. It was made in by Studio 1984, ecological pavilion in Alsace, or Alsace. I don't know. It's French, but I like this simple but really wonderful design. It's somehow convincing. Yeah, the structure is visible, so it's not plastered on the outside, and yeah, it's just one room inside, like a very small um, retreat ecological pavilion, like that. So, and with a big glass where you can have the wonderful view to the outside. And it's oriented on these parts where you store the straw, like that. So this is the plan for this house. Now, we wanted already some years ago, we had the idea to make also tiny houses or small houses, because we have a lot of requests. Can you build those houses also with straw base? As you see here, you can. It's always about the technique, and naturally a little bit more difficult is if you want to make it mobile. Because of the space you are allowed to have on the street. So what we already did was about this Hobbiton and the Hobbitini dome house with outside or inside structure. So you can use the structure for both reasons. Once you build it inside and build around with the cut construction your house here, then you have about 41 square meter of space in the first area and half covered upstairs, so that you can sleep upstairs. And if you build a dome inside, you have about 21 square meters, so a smaller room with the same construction. So it's a made of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 posts on the outside on pillar foundations, and a reciprocal roof with a skylight on top. But you can enlarge it to each side. So here's a little bit about this construction. This is a plan I found on the internet for making such a roundhouse, and in 2 stories. So first floor, second floor, where you can sleep on top, like that. There are many roundhouses made which appear or look like that. This was what we built in Belgium. So you see how these round wood posts look on the inside. These are Earthbag buildings and domes, so the visibility is most probably similar to that. Organic structures, you may know the the Nautilus from Javier Senucian in Mexico. And many structures use this system where you build a house, maybe blasted with clay on the outside, and then you make an external roof above that. So it's a option, but you can enlarge it. You can enlarge, for example, the first story and build later more rooms around it, or build Nautilus around it, or whatever. So there are a lot of ideas for making those houses. Now, for this year in the workshops, we will start with a roundhouse based on an idea by Mike Deveria, stepper from last year, and it should be mobile, and it should be uh, a roundhouse like a yurt with a reciprocal roof. So it has, in this case, it has 8-meter diameter, but you can do this in any kind of, you can do it with 6-meter, most probably 8-meter for reciprocal roof is quite the biggest size you can do with that. So then you have about 60 square meter of living area inside. And the idea of Mike was last year to have a sort of mixture of prefabrication and on-site building. So in fact, you build prefab modules for every second module and not for every one. So you have a sort of structure which you can do when you have a roundhouse. You have the, let's say, pillars, which are diagonally braced on the outside. So they are covered with a DVD port on the outside. Optionally, you can also cover it with diagonal bracing and then plaster it. But this is, for example, if you want to do a cladding. Now, if I would put one module to the other, then I'm not really flexible. This was the idea. So with this kind of space in between, which you can make bigger or smaller, you have the prefab modules are all the same size, or 80 centimeter, like a Bale size or Bale length. And in between, you have a window which is 135 wide, so you can do the window here or the door here, and you're open to any kind of architecture of this if you use these pillars like these prefab modules like pillars. Now, there. Then on site, depending on the size, you can make also a square house with this system. You if it's square house, especially, you need also to diagonally brace on site then the space in between. So window and then diagonal bracing or boards or whatever, and then you can fill this with a cut construction with any kind of technique you like with straw base. Here in this case, it's meant that you fill the space on site then with also with diagonal bracing material on the outside, like DVD port, Archipan DVD port, for example. And then on site, you will make the montage of the whole building. So it was meant that this building, as we said before, is mobile. So you can you can disassemble the whole building into the modules. Then you have the base in between. You can leave them there, or you can take it with you if they are still okay. But you can also compost them, especially if you blasted them on the inside or whatever. And then also the reciprocal roof needed to be prefabricated, so sort of easy montage on site. So we did it here with cross-laminated wood boards. And then a layer of straw base on top of that. And then we oriented on the yurts and looked what is the best option. And there are some options that Kerschbaumer also did in Graz for yurts, and which were built also with straw base. So to make 2 layers, one is a waterproof layer, diffusion open wind, and the second one is a Kate, which is a more or less tent fabric you can use for covering the roof, so without any ventilation space because it's diffusion open on top. So this would be the cheapest version, and the idea is to make this kind of 60 square meter house for about 30,000 something euro. We will see if it's possible, but we will start with our practical workshops this year, so very soon, and then build this house, and yeah, like that. So this is one of the options, and the second options is so in this case, just one more word about the base plate. It's also made in segments, so maximum is 2.55 m, what we can transport. So it has to be assembled and screwed together on building site, and you can disassemble it if it's especially made with a wooden cladding on the outside. So what are the limits for trailers or for camping houses or tiny houses, mobile tiny houses and cabins? So the maximum length is about 12 meter. For car plus trailer, it's about the maximum length of 18 meter, and the maximum height is about 4 meter, and yeah, like that. So these are the requirements you have for mobile tiny houses. Now there's a discussion about is it allowed to build it without or with building permit. This you have to clear that. It's very different, but usually you also need a building license or Bauanzeige, at least a Bauanzeige for if you make a house where you live, especially. So we want to look on another solution for for a trailer. So here we have usually a trailer which you can buy about it's in this case 7.29 m or 7.30 m long, 2.55 m wide, which is a usual trailer for a tiny house. You can have it in many different lengths, up to I don't know if it's really 12 meter or something, but much bigger as well. So we choose this one. It's about 4,000 euro when you buy this trailer, which has already the license to go on the street. And on top of that, we build a base plate. So the base plate is already consisting straw bales in this case. So it's 50 centimeter above ground or 47 centimeter above ground. So perfect as a sort of pillar foundation. Naturally, you stabilize it if it really stays for a longer time on your building site. So you have a base plate filled with straw already, and then I oriented on the plan of this wild cabins and one of these solutions for interior. But this is just an example of one possibility how you can make the interior. I liked this one where you have a window facing where you can lie in the bed and look through the window to a nice view, and you have a compost toilet and you have a sink here in the bathroom, and you have a shower. Then you have from the other side also a sink for washing, so the small kitchen with some shelves on top, and here would be the cooking space. Then here you have a space for two people sitting and eating, or maybe a third person with an extra chair, and you can use this whole space here for working. So this is kind of the office, but in the night, if there's a jalousie rouleau coming down, you can also watch your movie or whatever, surf on YouTube or something like that. So this is about the adapted floor plan from this. So as you see, now it has only a 3 centimeter plywood or cross-laminated wood, so it's not insulated. Yeah, this is the idea. So when you travel, you go like that. So there's a sort of that it fits in this kind of cube. for this is the maximum sizes. So everything, also the roof, which you can take apart and put in two pieces, you can transport on the roof like that. And you have still enough space on top to also for some additional construction materials or whatever. So it looks like that when you go uninsulated trailer. This is the idea. There's space for bicycle or something like that. Also for two bicycles in the back side. This is already insulated. The only part, because a big window is always a tricky part to make it windproof and airtight. So we focused on that this is already done, and all the other insulation you will do on site. So first, and there we oriented on this house in Alsace, a little bit on the construction, not exactly, but it was a little bit oriented on, yes. And we thought about a cut construction, to make a cut construction to fix the base. There are two options. One is screwing the base directly to the board here, to the 3 centimeter wooden board, which is possible. And the other one is to make a sort of cut construction to hold it on space with the battens. So, and then you fill it on site with the straw bales. So you have as soon as you want to stay, and it's not summer or whatever, where you just stay for one night. So if you decide to stay for a longer time on a place, you stabilize the whole building by supporting the trailer, and you just mount your straw base around it. You don't plaster it. You don't have to plaster it. So it will last for however how long you will stay, 5 years maybe. And if some bale is rotten here, you just easily can exchange it by taking it out, screwing another bale in it like that. Details, you can think about details. If there is a lot of snow in winter and you're there like that, then you will make a tarp on top of that, which is windproof and rainproof, like that. But in general, it was like that. So a system where you mount the straw bales on site when you stay there, and and if the bales are dense enough, so about 100-120 kilogram per cubic meter, it's fire safe itself for such a for such a device. But you can also plaster it with clay, for example, on the outside. You have a lot of roof overhang here with this roof, and these two parts of the roof fit exactly on top of the trailer, which we saw before. And when you look at this, naturally, this is much wider, so you need a space of 4.40 meters by 7 meters something for this house. But as again, the idea is to have a simple system which you can mount if you stay on a site. You can also use just one of these, and we will make variations. So this is sort of in plan concept, but just as an idea how you could solve a mobile home with straw bales on the outside as an insulation, which is not plastered, similar as this house we saw before from this one, from this ecological pavilion. And there are a lot of other houses which are made like that. So you use the straw as a surface, and whenever it's rotten, it's not for eternity, but you are temporary, you living temporary, and you can exchange easy the bales, and you you are mobile with that. So whenever the base, you can leave the base on the place, you don't have to transport it. And then when you come to a new place and want to stay here for 1 or 2 years, you just buy new bales and compost the old ones and use this base for the next 1 or 2 years. So this is how you could handle such a mobile home, so to keep the space working for going on the street. lightweight and without any big recommendations for necessities for very thin insulations with whatever kind of toxic materials. So you have a passive house which is really good insulated, but you leave the insulation on the ground and or take some bales with you, whatever you like that. So this kind of thinking was the idea for this project, which we will develop this year as a planning project. Thank you for watching this short excursion in tiny houses, and see you maybe on a workshop, on a real-time workshop.